A comparative study of vessel calcification using three methods: pathophysiology, viscoplastic energy, and topological geometry, number 1423, VMT Sharp 745, TDA Sharp 028, November 5, 2025. Gerald C. EclaireMD Foundation. Category: Vascular calcification, CVD and stroke. Preface: Recently, I have investigated the mechanisms of vascular calcification risk proxy, VCRP, using three independent but complementary scientific research methods: traditional pathophysiology, the Viscoplastic Medicine Theory, VMT, and Topological Data Analysis, TDA. This paper serves as the fourth in the series, providing a conclusive comparison of these three different approaches. By examining their similarities and differences, my motivation arose after my hemorrhagic stroke on June 21, 2025, when CT scans revealed extensive cerebral microvessel calcifications. My stroke doctor attributed this to chronic hypertension. However, my longitudinal dataset, containing more than 16 years of blood pressure readings, demonstrated that I never had chronic hypertension. In fact, during my recent 4-month post-stroke recovery period, fewer than 0.2% of all recorded measurements, about from 14 to 20 readings per day, fell within the range of from 130 to 149 millimeters of mercury, and none exceeded 150 millimeters of mercury. Of course, it took only one acute hypertension episode, 175 millimeters of mercury on June 21, 2025, to trigger the stroke, which occurred under already unhealthy vascular conditions caused by long-term blood vessel calcification. This contradiction motivated me to search for a deeper underlying cause: the combined metabolic and hemodynamic stress, accumulated through more than 36 years of type 2 diabetes and obesity. Through this research journey, I discovered that these three methods, pathophysiology, VMT, and TDA, describe the same biomedical reality from three distinct scientific perspectives. Pathophysiology represents the viewpoint of medicine, VMT reflects the principles of physics and engineering, and TDA embodies the analytical geometry framework of mathematics. Pathophysiology explains how the disease develops biologically. VMT quantifies how much energy the body absorbs and stores through mechanical and metabolic stress. TDA visualizes how the system's geometry changes as health variables interact over time. Introduction. Vascular calcification is a complex process, driven by both metabolic and hemodynamic factors. It reflects the gradual stiffening and calcified thickening of vessel walls that eventually impair perfusion, the delivery of oxygen and nutrients to tissues. To understand this multifactorial phenomenon, I applied three distinct analytical approaches. 1. Pathophysiological analysis, paper number 1420, based on established medical literature, describing the cellular, chemical, and structural progression of calcification. 2. Viscoplastic Medicine Theory, VMT, paper number 1421, a physics and engineering-based model that quantifies cumulative viscoplastic energy damage through strain-stress relationships. 3. Topological Data Analysis, TDA, paper number 1422, a geometric model that examines data, shape contraction or expansion to reflect biological stability or deterioration. By comparing these three frameworks using the same longitudinal dataset, from 2010 to 2025, with pp, map, FPG, and VF% as inputs, I aim to demonstrate their logical consistency, scientific complementarity, and mutual validation, while highlighting the similarities and differences among these three medical research methodologies. Methodological comparison. Pathophysiology, biological cause and effect. The pathophysiological explanation begins at the cellular and biochemical level. Chronic hyperglycemia, insulin resistance, and visceral obesity trigger endothelial dysfunction, oxidative stress, and inflammatory cytokine activation. Calcium and phosphate then deposit in the arterial wall, forming both intimal calcification, atherosclerotic, and medial calcification, non-atherosclerotic. Hypertension further accelerates these lesions through mechanical stretching, leading to vessel stiffening, reduced compliance, and impaired perfusion. Pathophysiology provides qualitative causality. It explains why calcification occurs, but not how much it progresses quantitatively. Viscoplastic Medicine Theory, VMT, quantitative energy model. The VMT model interprets the human vascular system as a viscoplastic material, subject to continuous mechanical and metabolic loading. 4 stressors, inputs, PP, MAP, FPG, VF%, and a single strain, output, VCRP, interact dynamically to produce cumulative energy, representing irreversible tissue deformation. Through longitudinal energy integration, The total viscoplastic energy quantifies the degree of vascular damage. My 16-year dataset produced a 60-40 ratio of VMT VCRP energies between metabolic and hemodynamic contributions, matching medical literature that attributes greater influence to diabetes than hypertension. The energy curve reached 97% saturation after 2019, reflecting an irreversible steady state. Further confirming that past metabolic injury cannot be reversed, only stabilized. VMT therefore transforms the qualitative biological picture into a quantitative physical model that tracks the irreversible accumulation of vascular stress energy over time. Topological Data Analysis, TDA, Geometric Shape Model. The TDA model approaches the same problem through geometry and data connectivity by mapping the four biomarkers, VF%, FPG, PP, MAP, into a 4D point cloud. I examined how the geometric shape of the health manifold evolved annually between 2010 and 2025. PCA, Principal Component Analysis, reduced this 4D space into orthogonal axes, PC1 and PC2. PC1 captured the primary metabolic domain, VF%, FPG. PC2 captured the secondary hemodynamic domain, PP, MAP. The early years, from 2010 to 2012, formed a large, irregular shape with high dispersion, indicating instability and high risk. From 2013 to 2018, the manifold contracted sharply, representing system recovery through improved lifestyle control. After 2019, the topology stabilized into a compact sphere, symbolizing equilibrium but irreversible rigidity. The geometric contraction ratio, about 38%, closely parallels the VMT energy dissipation trend, confirming that both energy and shape describe the same physiological stabilization process. Comparative analysis, pathophysiology versus VMT versus TDA. Pathophysiology, scientific nature, biological and cellular. Primary focus, mechanisms and causality. Key variables, hormones, enzymes, cap deposits. Analytical output, qualitative explanation. Dimensional domain, biochemical cause-effect. Main insight, diabetes initiates, hypertension accelerates. Limitation, descriptive, not quantitative. Viscoplastic Medicine Theory, VMT. Scientific nature, physical and energetic. Primary focus, quantification of cumulative stress energy. Key variables, PP, MAP, FPG, VF%, stress versus strain. Analytical output, energy ratio 60% metabolic versus 40% hemodynamic. Dimensional domain, dynamic strain stress model. Main insight, D. Energy accumulation irreversible after 2018. Limitation, requires long-term dataset. Topological data analysis, TDA. Scientific nature, mathematical and geometric. Primary focus, shape, continuity, and connectivity. Key variables, 4D manifold of normalized biomarkers. Analytical output, geometric contraction, stability achieved. Dimensional domain, PCA and geometric topology. Main insight, geometry contracts as stress dissipates. Limitation, requires numerical computation. All three approaches converge to the same conclusion. Metabolic stress, diabetes, obesity, is the primary driver of vascular calcification. Hemodynamic stress, blood pressure, is a secondary amplifier or trigger. Once calcification reaches saturation, a complete structural reversal is not possible, partial irreversible, but progression can be stabilized through lifestyle management. In summary, pathophysiology explains why, VMT measures how much, and TDA visualizes how IT evolves. Discussion. The integration of these three disciplines illustrates that biomedical phenomena are inherently multidimensional. Pathophysiology operates at the biological microlevel. Biological cells, chemistry, pathology. VMT quantifies the macrolevel system response through energy mechanics. TDA maps the multidimensional structure of these interactions through geometry. Together, they transform the understanding of chronic disease from a static cause-effect framework into a dynamic, nonlinear, and multi-domain system. Key commonality. In my personal case, all three models consistently show that the primary damage originated from 2 decades of uncontrolled diabetes before 2010. The following 16 years of lifestyle modification reduced the active stress load, but could not completely reverse the physical calcification formed earlier. The convergence of biomedical, physical energy, and mathematical geometry evidence strengthens the credibility of this multi-method conclusion. Key differences. Although pathophysiology, VMT, and TDA describe the same process of vascular calcification, each provides a unique perspective. Pathophysiology explains why calcification occurs through biological mechanisms such as hyperglycemia, oxidative stress, and inflammation. It is descriptive but not quantitative. VMT, Viscoplastic Medicine Theory, quantifies how much stress energy accumulates in the vascular wall. It translates biological stress into physical energy terms, showing that metabolic factors contribute about 60% of total damage and hemodynamic factors about 40%. TDA, Topological Data Analysis, visualizes how system geometry evolves over time. By mapping biomarkers as multidimensional points, it shows geometric contraction and stabilization after 2018, confirming the same trend observed in VMT. Conclusion: together, these three analytical methods form a complementary framework for understanding vascular calcification. Pathophysiology reveals its biological causes, VMT quantifies its physical magnitude, and TDA visualizes its geometric evolution. This comparative study demonstrates that three seemingly different scientific methods, pathophysiology, VMT, and TDA, describe the same vascular calcification process through different scientific frameworks, but ultimately converge on the same outcome. Diabetes and obesity, metabolic domain, contribute about 60% of the total calcification burden, while hypertension and vascular pressure, hemodynamic domain, contribute about 40%. Vascular calcification behaves as a nonlinear, progressive, and partially irreversible process. By integrating these three analytical dimensions, this work establishes a unified biomedical framework that bridges medicine, physics, and mathematics, providing a more complete and accurate understanding of complex chronic conditions, such as vascular calcification and stroke risk. Each model's function is sharply defined. Pathophysiology explains causality, VMT quantifies magnitude, and TDA visualizes evolution. The triad structure is memorable and conceptually clear. Disclaimer: I write this paper not for fame, but to share what I have learned so others can understand their health, prevent disease, and live longer, healthier lives. This content is for educational reference only, and does not constitute medical advice. No doctor-patient relationship is created. You may share this summary freely, but it must not be altered, edited, or republished as your own. All intellectual property rights and copyrights belong to the author. Gerald C.